Today's webinar will be addressing accelerating your career, what to do after my internship experience has finished. What are my next steps? I am your facilitator today. Again, my name is Nikki Bailey. I'm the internship program manager here with the New Jersey Office of the Secretary of Higher Education. I have a master's degree in psychology and an undergraduate degree in psychology from Rutgers. And my previous experience prior to joining OSHE was in a career services center at a university for many, many years. And with me, helping me co-facilitate, is my graduate fellow, Samantha Lopez. She recently graduated from Kean University with a master's in industrial organizational psychology. So today we're going to go through accelerating your career. Again, any questions, pop in the chat, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. In the chat, Dominique, I love that you're being proactive and putting your LinkedIn profile. I encourage you all to do that so that you can connect with your fellow intern cohort. So today we're just going to go through some things that you should be thinking about as you are either wrapped up your internship experience through Career Accelerator Internship Grant Program or beginning to wrap up your projects initiatives with your organization. And the first thing I want to just highlight is that you should be empowering your own engagement. Throughout this time, through our June webinar, through our July webinar, and hopefully through encouragement with your interactions with your supervisor, you've been really doing some self-reflection on what skill sets you are really good at, what skill sets you might need work on, and how to kind of advocate for yourself in the workplace to build on those skill sets and help yourself progress in your career. You are the driver of your own career trajectory, right? So with assistance from employers and internships and supervisors and mentors that you will engage with along the way, but you are in the driver's seat. So I want you to remember that. You should be investing in yourself. The Office of the Secretary of Higher Education has invested in you by awarding this funding to employers to hire you, but also by allowing you the opportunity to have access to LinkedIn Learning. So again, that's just investment doesn't necessarily mean money. It could mean time. So I want to say that. Taking the opportunity to engage and invest in yourself, learn the new skill sets, kind of step outside of your comfort zone and make new connections before you are completely finished with your internship experience at your organization. All this reflection is helpful for you and really helps when you are connecting with your purposes and objectives. And that is the purpose of today. What is your next step? What is your next goal? What is your next short-term goal? What is your next long-term goal? We talked a lot about goals during our first session, that you were looking to learn skills, gain experience in industry and things like that. Okay, so this experience is coming to an end. What is your next goal? Is it to obtain some sort of leadership position on campus, perhaps, and engage more with your extracurricular or co-curricular activities on campus? Is it to secure another internship during the academic year or next summer? Could your long-term goal be to obtain postgraduate full-time employment? So things to think about. We'll go a little bit over setting SMART goals, which are super important when you just think about, again, being in the driver's seat and understanding where you're at and where you need to get to. Also, throughout this experience and throughout these weeks that you've experienced this internship and your supervisor and the world of work or the culture of your organization, establishing clear expectations for yourself as to what an outcome might be and or expectations as to what you need to do to get to the next step. I'm hoping that if communication wasn't one of your top skills when you entered your internship experience, that you have worked on and honed that skill, because it is one of the top skills in that employers seek for both interns and full-time employees. So hopefully you have learned, if it was not a strong suit of yours, how to communicate effectively and get across your ideas. throughout this, finding opportunities to showcase your strengths, depending upon the organization. I know some organizations are going to have their interns do presentations at the end of their experiences, to showcase their strengths and what they learned and what they might have produced or their deliverable for each employer. But that's not the end of it. Just because you're finished with your internship experience, you can showcase the strengths that you've learned through your internship experience in different ways, such as on your resume, during an interview, during a network night. So I just want you to think about that. Again, empowering your own engagement. You are in the driver's seat. And just make sure that upon your reflection, you are making the most out of your experience, your internship experience. And if upon your reflection, you feel like maybe you did not make the most out of the experience, what did you learn from that? What would you do differently? And what will you do differently next time when you have a new internship, a new work assignment, things like that? We talked we talked a lot about goals in each session, but just to provide you a framework of what you should be thinking about upon entering into the next step in your career trajectory. So some of your employers might have encouraged you to create SMART goals before you started your internship and might have worked with you to create those goals for this 10-week experience. But you should also think about it in terms of what's next for you. So if your next step is to secure another summer internship or secure a post-graduation full-time position or to secure a leadership role in some organization on campus, you really should be focusing on these goals and making them SMART goals. So a SMART goal, if you haven't heard the term, which I'm sure you might have, but if you haven't, I think either way, it deserves a bit of reiteration. When you're making goals, you can make really vague, broad, giant goals, but that makes them harder to accomplish because you need to break them down, right? Just like any large task that might feel overwhelming at the time. Students in my previous role would come into my office, sit down and they say, I want to get a full-time job. Okay, well, that's a really large task undertaking. Let's break it down into small, tangible steps as to how you can get a full-time job. And a way to do that is to use a SMART goal. So be really specific. A SMART goal could be, I want to apply to um, I want to apply to full-time jobs and procure a full-time job at the end of the semester, let's say. So making that SMART could be being specific. I'm going to apply to 3 to 5 jobs each week until I get responses or interviews. Measurable, make sure your goal and progresses are measurable. So you're either receiving responses, you are getting interviews, and I'll go into other examples as well. But making sure those goals are measurable, achievable. So when I talk about applying to positions, either internships or full-time jobs, applying to 3 to 5 jobs a week, that's attainable, that's achievable. Applying to 50 jobs a week, probably not so much. And when you think about it in terms like that, it's things that are achievable, that are within reach and tangible. If you set the achievability to be too high, chances are you'll do it for a week, 2 weeks maybe, but then you'll get burned out on it. So you want to be really realistic with yourself in setting the goals. Relevant. So your goal should align with your values and long-term objectives. So your goal could be developing a certain skill as well. You really just want to think, and this is where all that self-reflection comes into, as to what's going to help you achieve that long-term goal, if it's full-time employment or if it's your next internship experience. And time-based. Set a realistic but ambitious end date to clarify what's priority and increase your motivation. So oftentimes, and I am a procrastinator at times, I will say, but in the professional world of work, when you set that timeline and make things time-based in regards to when you want things out by, it helps you achieve those small short-term goals really much more easily than just leaving it looming without a deadline. That's why in some of the emails that you'll receive from me, especially I'm going to send you an email about evaluations, evaluating your internship experience. There will be a deadline, because if I didn't put a deadline, you probably would ignore it or wouldn't do it or say, I'll get back to it and never get back to it. So time-based and deadlines are really important for setting goals. Here's another example of a more simpler way to give you an example of what a SMART goal could be. You can say, I want to get fit, I want to lose weight, or I want to get healthy. Okay, that's a really, really broad goal. So let's break it down into some simpler terms and things that are more tangible and feasible for you to achieve. So instead of getting healthy or getting fit, you're going to say, I'm going to run. I'm going to run. That's a specific thing that you're working towards. How often are you going to run? That's that measurability. Are you going to do it 2 times a week, 3 times a week, to hold yourself accountable as well, to make sure that you are checking the boxes of the things that you're promising yourself you're going to do. What is achievable? How many miles is that? How many minutes is that per day? So something that's achievable. Am I going to set out a goal that says I'm going to run for 2 hours a day when I'm a mom and I work full time and my kids are in sports? No, because that is really not achievable for me. But if I said I'm going to dedicate 30 minutes 3 times a week to do some running, that's more achievable. So you want to think really in terms, especially if you are still in school and managing full load of classes, extracurricular activities. And then, of course, we encourage work-life balance. So, of course, we want you to be having fun and enjoying your friends and your peers. So what is achievable for you? What's within reason? What would be relevant? Why do you want to do it? I want to get another internship so I can build on my experiences and get a higher paying job when I apply to a full-time job. I want to get a full-time job that's higher paying because I have an internship experience. I want to run 3 times a week for 30 minutes a day to be able to work myself up to a half marathon or a 6K, even more realistic. And then when do you want to do it by? So if it's applying to summer internships, what's a good timeline? And I would encourage you to lean into your career center as well at the organization, if you are a current student or even an alum, to help understand when your industry does hiring, because every industry does their hiring cycles a little bit differently. Some in the finance and accounting industries are really, really early for, let's say, summer, where others are later in the spring for summer. So you really want to have and understand the timeliness of your goals, and how they relate to your industry. I'm going to pass it over to Sam now to talk about productivity.
All right, so these are some ways that you can maximize your productivity. First, don't just manage your time by your energy. This is in terms of the effort that you put into your work. There might be times where we might find ourselves in our golden hours, where we're able to really put all of ourselves into our work. We're able to finish our tasks easier and faster. And there are times or days where we might feel our energy is a little bit low. We're getting things done slower. We don't feel that we have much effort to give into our tasks. So it's very important that you also find those times or days where you feel like you're the most active, you have more energy, you have more yourself to give into your work, into completing your task, and which days or times you might feel like, this is not really my time, or the best of me where I can give all of my effort. So it's necessary for you to understand those times so that you know when to prioritize your bigger task, or when to provide time to those tasks that don't really need much importance or are not as urgent as other ones. And that's that goes with our second bullet point, which is to focus on your bigger tasks first. So normally you will have several tasks to work with at the same time. So you really need to focus on which deadlines are first, which ones need collaboration with others, which ones need more of your attention to. And it's important that you prioritize those that first are done or have an earlier deadline than the other ones, but you need to make sure that you're not really focusing only on one. If you feel like that's making you burn out, or if you need like a little bit of a break, you can mix between tasks so you can have a change of, um, let's say, change of mind. But really want to focus on getting done the bigger tasks first than the smaller ones. We also want to make sure that we remove any distractions that can make us lose our train of thought while we're working, or can make us forget important things that we need for our projects or during our workday. So it's important that even if that's our phone, if that's listening to music or watching videos, we want to make sure that we remove as much distraction as we can so we can get our things done more effectively. It's also important to time block your schedule. So this is really a helpful way for you to complete your tasks more efficiently. So for example, if you have a platform like Teams or any other platform, you can time block your workday or several days during your work week to a specific time frame so that other people know that you're busy during that time and that you're able to completely put your focus on whatever task or project that you're working on. Also refine your workspace. It's really, really helpful for you to have a clear and organized workspace that you're aware of where everything is, where to find the things that you need more easier and faster rather than having a messy workspace that's also going to steal your energy. You're going to stress yourself more, not knowing where everything is. And also it might make you actually not be as productive as you would want to be. And even if you want to work really hard, get your things done as fast as you can, it's also very important for you to take regular breaks. As I mentioned, we might um, feel burnt out if we're constantly hour by hour working on something and we don't have like a break where we can just neutralize ourselves, gain our energy back. So it's important that during the work day and during the work week, you're able to take regular breaks to kind of have like a start over point. So please don't minimize the importance of regular breaks. And don't multitask and focus on one thing at a time. I know that sometimes we tend to think that we can multitask and do several things at the same time, but by doing so, you might sometimes be more prone to make mistakes or have errors in your projects or tasks. So it's important that if you're able to put your energy into one project, that might make it come out better and without errors. And you will also feel a weight come off your shoulders when you get things done one by one rather than mixing everything. And also that will be another stressor and weight on your shoulders as well. Next, please.
So we just have a quick poll for you to do some self-reflection and say, what time of day are you most productive? So I'm seeing a lot of first thing in the morning and or mid-morning before lunch. Um, in the lead mid-morning before lunch, which for me tracks for college age students, right? But and maybe not, maybe even not if you're not a traditional age college student. So here is what I will say to you with this poll. If you could see the results in the breakdown right there. Um, if you know that you are most productive mid-morning before lunch, that is the time that you should be blocking off to get the priority task done. right? So, for example, I am most productive in the morning. I start my day early. Um, Time is blocked because I start my workday earlier than many to respond to emails. And I know that's when I do most of my responses to emails. And then if I have a big brain activity, let's say I really need to do some serious thinking and strategizing, I'm not going to do that in the late afternoon because I know my brain's just not going to be at its most optimal at that time. So it's really thinking about when you are most productive and what tasks that you need to get complete to get done. I think Sam's going to cover a little bit of that and how you can identify what needs to be done, but think about what how you just answered that, um, and what your priorities are, especially if you're moving forward and setting goals for yourself for the fall semester, the spring semester, or beyond.
Okay, so we want to know how to monitor our performance. So first, you can identify your achievements and mistakes. It's very important for you to recognize your achievements, what you do right, what you know your best skills are, your best capacities, because that will help you maintain a positive mindset and will boost your motivation to do things better every time. But it's also important to recognize your mistakes, what things you might have weaknesses on, what areas you might do in certain tasks or projects, because that will help you plan ahead to prevent future ones. And that's essentially what we want. It's also essential for you to keep a journal where you log all of your work progress and you keep track of what your projects, you keep track of what you've participated in, your achievements within your role or your company, because you never know when that might be helpful. And you also need to basically have a backup of what you do, because as I mentioned, you never know when that might come important. And because that will help you also in building up your resume, understanding really what you did within your role and within that company. It's also very critical for you to seek out feedback. It's important for you to understand your own performance, how you're doing, which skills or abilities you're good in, and which ones are an area for improvement. And it's also important for you to find different perspectives on your work because they may differ. People's experiences might be able to help you understand which aspects of your work, of yourself, could be improved for your own good. So it's important to be receptive and to ask for guidance, of course, to the right people that can actually provide you with meaningful feedback. So whether it be your manager, supervisor, another fellow colleague that you might know that can help you with that. But it's important for you to get feedback so you're able to improve, not only within the role that you are in right now, but for future roles or future companies that you might want to apply to. It's good to also understand or to be aware of what is expected of you. So even if you understand what your role is and what you think you need to do, it's important that you also understand what your manager or supervisor wants of you within your role. So that you're able to meet or exceed those expectations and to also become a better professional. Um, and it's important to also be reflective. You need to regularly keep in mind what you did well during the workday or again during the work week. Where are some aspects that you can improve and how to improve them? You can find mentors within the company that can help you with things that you might not have the knowledge of, or you can also research them on your own online or see if your company has any resources that they can help you with. And it's important for you to also do constant self-assessment so you know where you're standing, you know where your capacities are lying for now. So it's important that even if someone else is monitoring your performance, that you yourself do so as well. Next, please. So we have something called the Eisenhower matrix, which is basically a simple and effective decision-making tool that helps you to determine which tasks need our immediate priority, as well as how to administer and delegate the rest of your task. This is basically a task management tool that helps you distinguish between urgent and important tasks so you can establish an efficient workflow. So as you can see on our graphic here, you have your urgent and important tasks, which are tasks with clear deadlines and significant consequences if not completed in a timely fashion. Then you have your not urgent but important, which are tasks with no set deadline, but that bring you closer to your long-term goals. You have your urgent but not important, which are tasks that need to get done but don't need your expertise in order to be completed. And then you have your tasks that are not urgent or not important. Those are the ones who distract you from your preferred course and don't add any measurable value. So this is a really good task management tool if you don't really know which methods or strategies are the best for you in order to really prioritize the tasks that really need to be or to get done and the ones that you might be able to hold on for a bit.
And just piggybacking on what Samantha just shared, again, back to that when you're most productive. When you're most productive should be when you're completing either urgent tasks or scheduling the important tasks to be done for the next day when you know you're going to be that productive and the urgent tasks have already been completed. Um, as an intern, you might not get the ability to delegate, let's say, but you can lean into your supervisor and say, this really is outside of my expertise or something that I don't feel comfortable doing, or it's going to take me a lot longer to do this than I think that you would like. So that might be a conversation you have with a supervisor to talk about, is there someone on our team that could do this and do it really efficiently and effectively? Um, are there other interns that have this skill set? How can we figure out how this task gets done since it doesn't fall within the urgent important bucket?
Okay, so it's really important for us to also work on our time management. You want to make sure that you're always early and never late. It's always better for you to be a few minutes early or even 15 minutes early rather than being like a minute or 5 minutes late. That will also help you become a more punctual person, not only in your professional life, but your personal life, which is also very important. You want to create and keep a schedule of all of the things that you would do again during your workday as well as in your work week so that you know when you have certain matters that you need to attend to, certain meetings that you're not forgetting anything or missing out on anything. So it's important for you to create your schedule, but to also try to look at it every single day so you know where you're standing with your events. Also, you want to determine your to-do list. You want to know what are the things that you need to focus on day by day. What are maybe collaborations or things that you need to participate in, that you need to communicate with other people. So you want to make sure that you have a list where you're not forgetting anything important. And that could either be you writing on a notebook if that's your preferred way, or you can have an app where you're tracking all of your tasks. You also want to set and maintain a productive time frame. So again, we can go back to the time block of your schedule for you to really make sure that you put in all of your attention into the task and project that you're working on so that you're not making any mistakes, so that you know that you're doing everything as it has to get done. And also for you to really um, try to give your best effort into completing it. That's going back to the time of day where you feel that you're most productive in. So if you really have an important project, you want to make sure that you focus your time within your most productive part of the day, whether it be morning or afternoon. You also want to plan the best methods and our tools for you and implement them into your daily work routine. So going back to the Eisenhower matrix, but there are also many other task management tools that you might want to research on so that you really start implementing the one that you think might work best for you or might be the best fit. So you don't really have to stick to one. You can try several ones to see which one works best for you. So it makes your life and your workday easier. You also, again, want to establish goals and priorities. It's important for you to understand what you want out of a certain task, what you want out of a certain project, what you want to focus on first and foremost before anything else. And if you have any doubts about your own projects and tasks, ask your manager or supervisor which ones they think that you should focus more on before others. And you want to set reminders again so you don't forget anything, whether that be in your calendar, whether that be in your phone, but you want to make sure that you're not missing out on anything, that you're not forgetting anything, especially if it's important, and especially if you need to um, show your progress to anybody else. So now we have types of feedback. These are just some of them, but there are several types of feedback in case that you want to um, get to know more types of feedback. You can, of course, search them on Google, but some of those include constructive feedback, which are observations in areas of improvement that people focus on with the goal to help employees grow. So a lot of people tend to confuse constructive criticism with like people just want to criticizing you, but we need to understand that there are areas that we need to improve, that we're not perfect in everything, and that normally people just want you to really be the best of yourself, to really improve so that you're able to provide your best effort to what you do and again to your organization. So we need to understand really in the tone and how people are seeing things, whether they really mean for us to get better and better day by day, or whether they're just trying to criticize you with no point at all. And that leads me to negative or destructive feedback, which is when people share reprimanding comments without offering any type of support or suggestions. And they just basically want to focus on an employee's faults, what they're doing wrong, what their mistakes are, rather than focusing maybe on what achievements they might have accomplished, as well as not really caring whether they improve or whether which areas of improvement they might need to work or focus on. So we need to also, you might confuse those two, constructive and negative or destructive feedback. So you really need to pay attention to how people are saying things, what they are saying, and whether they really are worrying about you and your improvement, or whether they just want to focus on your faults. And then we have positive feedback, which is when people acknowledge and reinforce actions that produce their desired results, and it encourages employees to keep striving forward, to keep doing their best. It motivates them to really put all of their effort into their work and into their tasks. This is basically the feedback that we would all want, but again, there might be certain times or situations where some feedback may be better than others. And so we have, for example, developmental feedback, which is a future-focused approach that centers around potential opportunities for growth and providing insights to help employees move closer to their goals. But there's also feedback that focuses on how you can train yourself on things that will help you in the future to achieve your future goals, whether that be short-term or long-term goals. So really, again, as I mentioned, depending on what you want, you may get a different type of feedback. It doesn't mean that you always have to stick to one. And it actually can be helpful for you to move between one and another.
I was just going to add to that, three of those four types of feedback are all valuable, right? Um, I could probably make an argument that destructive or negative feedback is somewhat beneficial for you, but I'm not going to make that argument right now. Thinking about constructive feedback, positive feedback, or developmental feedback, and it's as a supervisor, especially if someone's supervising multiple people, everyone likes different types of feedback, right? So a good supervisor is going to use all three of those methods. Um, and kind of mix and match with the need and the base. But I can say from personal experience, sometimes positive feedback is not something that comes easily to me. Like I'm not a rah-rah kind of person, but I know that if somebody needs that from me, I have to try to give that to them as well, while also giving them constructive feedback or developmental feedback. So you need to think about what you need. And if your supervisor is only giving you one type of feedback, and let's say you would like some developmental feedback, think about prompting questions to get what you need out of that feedback session. Okay, I'm back to you, Sam. Sorry.
Okay. So that leads us to how to ask for feedback. So first, it's important for you to identify the right people to ask for feedback. So of course, if it's something regarding your work, you're not going to ask a friend for their feedback. You want to ask your manager, supervisor, again, someone that you feel can really provide you with valuable feedback for you to improve. So it's good for you to start identifying that, whether it be right now in your internship or for a future full-time job. You also need to prepare for the meeting um, with advance, and also um, you need to have questions with advance or areas of concern from yourself that you want to focus on. So of course you don't want to ask somebody, can we have a meeting now so you can provide me feedback? Because you never know what their schedule might be, whether they're busy. So you want to ask in advance whether first they want to help you with that and also when they're available for it. Again, you need to clearly state which aspects of your performance you want feedback on. You don't want to just give them a whole bunch of things that you want feedback on, but try to prioritize things that you feel are the most important to you or the ones that you would like to improve any faster. And again, you want to consider what type of feedback you need. We provided you with four of them, which I think you guys will want to focus more on the three of other ones mentioned. But again, you can also search on other types of feedback if you feel like those are good, but you will like something else. You probably find which one you need, and then also make sure that they know which type of feedback you like. But also be receptive in case they want to provide you any other type of feedback that could also be valuable. Again, you want to prepare the right questions. If you're unsure of something, you can also consult with your manager or find questions online that could be helpful for you. And you want to take notes on the feedback provided because you might remember some things, but within the conversation and time after the meeting, you might start forgetting stuff. So you want to make sure that you take those notes down and that you really remember everything that every advice or suggestion that they give you and implement them day by day. Of course, it's not going to happen um, after one day, but within your progress, you also want to communicate how you're doing to the person that you ask for feedback so that they can really see your progress. And in case that they have any other suggestion, they can provide it to you.
So we're going to do another poll, but before I jump into it, I did put something in the chat just to encourage you. If you do not have a final meeting with your intern supervisor scheduled or on the books, please prompt them to schedule that or schedule that for yourself because you really do want that feedback before you move on to your next experience. It's going to be really valuable for you when you're looking at your next opportunity, your next job, and also when you go to speak to additional employers about your experience, what you learned, how you could grow. So that feedback is crucial. And then Sam had mentioned figuring out who to ask feedback of. Obviously, it's going to be your supervisor, but perhaps you were doing a project that had an expert on that specific task that you might also ask for feedback of. So think about that as well. And your supervisor could help you or prompt you to connect with other people to get feedback. Um, so this is going to be a short answer poll just to think about if you could achieve one thing today, August 7th. I can't believe it's August already, but August 7th, what would it be? Feel free to share and I'll start talking through some of the responses. I'm not going to give you too long to answer because I want to be cognizant of time and I want to get through all the content. Um,
You can also leave it in the chat if you would like to put in your input on this.
yeah, that would also be helpful. Um, Can you see those results? Because I shared them, but they're not showing to me.
No.
Give me 1 second.
And again, if anyone wants to participate that wasn't able to participate in the poll, you're more than welcome to put your input in the chat.
I'm talking. This one's giving me trouble and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I will share those results hopefully at the end. But I'm going to keep moving on. Can everyone see how to make your resume stand out? Thanks, Sam. Just making sure we're all on the same page. So right now I just want to go through some resume interviewing, things like that to help prepare you for your next step. I could do an hour plus on resumes alone, right? So I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm also going to encourage you to talk to your supervisor, talk to your supervisor about specific resume content for your industry. I'm going to ask you to lean into your career center as well. Those people are hired to help you with resumes and content, and they keep up on best practices per industry and things like that. So I'm going to go over really a broad overview of what makes resumes stand out. And again, ask you to just lean into your university, your institution for assistance. But now, and here's the beauty of your internship experience, and hopefully it was in an industry that you are interested in pursuing long term. You have relevant job information to include on your resume for that next position. So perhaps before you got this internship experience, you didn't have a ton of experience within your industry, and now you do. How you want to make it stand out, include relevant information to the jobs you want to apply for. So a common mistake that I've seen year over year as a career counselor in my former role is that students use the same resume to apply to different industries, different sectors, things like that. Again, I could go on and on and on about how to tailor a resume for your specific job. So you really want to be super familiar with the job description that you're applying to, the verbiage that's in that job description, and the tasks that they're asking you to complete. If you have experience with that in your current internship or in some previous roles, let's say in school, you really want to use that verbiage, that content, and speak to the tasks that they're asking in this new role, in this new internship, in this new full-time position. Relevant, right? So resume should be in reverse chronological order. That means the most recent to the least recent. However, there's a way to get around that, and that is by breaking it down with headings as to the most relevant experience to the job that you're applying to should come right underneath of your education. So if you're a current student or a recent grad, your education is always going to be at the top of your resume. Um, you know, and I'm also going to say this, you can ask 10 different people their opinions about what a resume should look like, and you're going to get 10 different responses. So the information I'm sharing with you is just best practices as to what career professionals advise students generally. you really want to highlight your accomplishments rather than your responsibilities, right? Everybody has a responsibility and a duty through their role. But if you've accomplished something, if you've produced a deliverable, if you've helped a unit, a team within your organization achieve a goal, that's what you want to speak to, as opposed to, well, Sam, I'm going to use you for an example. You know, reviewed job descriptions for Career Accelerator Internship Grant Program. That's a decent bullet point underneath of your experience. But a more powerful bullet point would be how much you helped to increase the opportunities that were awarded through the grant funding program, through the review process, or perhaps how you helped the manager improve the review process for the grant experience or the grant funding. So it's just thinking about what you did, reflecting on what you've done, and then talking about how impactful it is. Recruiters often like to see quantifiable, achievable, measurable. So if there's any way to talk through numbers, in Sam's example, um, we afforded 600 interns opportunities through Career Accelerator Internship Grant Program. So that's a powerful number for her to put on her resume, to speak to just the growth of the program and or the overall impact of the program, I should say. Um, you should make sure to be concise and keep your resume to one page. I will say for undergraduates, it's likely one page. For some master's students or beyond, you could probably go over onto the second page, as long as it's relevant to the job that you're applying to. So let's say your resume goes on or beyond one page, but you had a lot of fluff on there. And I don't mean that it wasn't a great experience. I mean, it wasn't relevant to the job that you were pursuing. So if you now have an internship and another internship and some student leadership roles, and you also, worked at Wawa or Target or something like that, those are great, but might not be as important as your internship experiences. And then for those that are currently an undergraduate, some of your high school stuff needs to come off after freshman year. So there's ways to whittle it down. Again, that's why I'm going to tell you to lean into your career center professionals, because they can help you achieve that. You just want to make sure it's short and concise, and that all the content on your resume is relevant to the job that you're applying to. Proofread for errors. So you're going to sit through, perhaps you might be considered for a position and it wants you to be detail oriented, and your resume has an error on it, grammatical or spelling, that could automatically weed you out of the competition. It's a way to say, hey, this person needs to be detail oriented and they have errors on their resume, so I don't consider them detail oriented. So that's why you have career services professionals. Ask your peers, ask your parents to review, and because sometimes one set of eyes, your own and maybe somebody else's, won't catch one thing. So you want a few people to review it and look over it. This says second set of eyes. I'm going to say third, fourth, because more people is less likely to, more people are more likely to catch an error, as opposed to just one person. You could catch the same or not catch the same error, I should say. Things to avoid in your resume. I'm going to start flying because I'm looking at the time. Putting too much information in dense paragraphs. It's easier to put in bullet point format, because depending upon how many people apply to a position, people are scanning. Computers are scanning. You really don't want to tell non-truths about your work experience and qualifications, because you're going to be called out on them if you get into an interview or in the position. Unnecessary personal information is, you should leave that out. Keep your contact information relevant. I'm going to say this just because I've had experience with it. Just make sure you're using professional emails, and if you have a voicemail that is professional, I've experienced both of those through hiring and reviewing resumes with inappropriate email and like musical voicemails and things like that. So just make sure if you're in the job search, you're keeping everything really professional. I saw somebody just state resume templates that you recommend. So templates or formats. I mean, I'm gonna go old school. I'm gonna go old school because most people would recommend that you just start out in a Word document and type your resume because it makes it easier to edit as opposed to using templates. When you go back to add content, it makes it harder for you to edit. And oftentimes, if you're uploading it to um, applicant tracking systems online, it might if it is in a template, it would mess up the formatting and things like that. So the easiest thing to do is just start typing it in a Word document and start formatting on your own. Your career center likely has templates that you can follow as well that are not templates, they're just Word documents and you can follow their formatting. Maybe not as there might be some templates out there that are easier to edit. So I wouldn't say there's anyone that I would recommend. Just not like color fancy unless you're going into um, an artistic type of role. Um, when I'll get back to this question after we go through. Um, you don't need to include like references available upon request and things like that. That's old school. Um, Also checking spelling and grammatical errors. I'm going to quickly go through interview prep, but this is probably something your career center has mock interviews or mock interview software that you could practice with. But the most important thing is to be familiar with the job description and do extensive research on the organization you are applying to. Why do you want to work for that organization? What about that organization makes it stand out from its competitor? Know what you're applying to and what their mission statement is, what their goals are, who their clients are, things like that. Connect your skills with the job duties. That goes back to the tailoring. Um, when you are preparing, what are the 3 things that you're going to pull out from your resume that you really want the employer to know about? Your accomplishments at, let's say, your summer internship experience. Matching, again, you're looking at that job description. That job description is the way to tailor your resume and tailor your interviewing questions to speak to those things that the job description is looking for. You can search for common interview questions. I'm sure your career center or anywhere on the internet has a list of commonly asked interview questions and rehearse your answers. Some career centers offer that mock interview software where you could record your answers and get scored on it. So it's important to lean into the resources that are available to you as students. Polishing tone and body language, appropriate outfit. Again, that could be dependent upon your industry, but really err on the conservative side if you're unsure, I would say. Prepare thoughtful questions in advance. So I mean, in this stage in your career trajectory, it might not be as much, but ultimately, you should be interviewing the organization as much as they're interviewing you to make sure that it's a good fit for you. Because if it's not, and this is more so for full-time positions, but if it's not a good fit for you, you're going to feel that throughout your day, throughout your work weeks, right? So you really want to ask thoughtful questions at the end of an interview to make sure that the environment, the culture of the organization, and things like that are going to be a good fit for you. Find people you can exercise mock interviews with. Again, lean into your career center. That's offerings that they have, or they have platforms and software that can help you. I'm going to go quickly through the STAR method because a lot of times you're going to engage in interviews and they're behavioral-based interviews. Behavioral-based interview questions are best answered with the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. Tell me a time when that's a behavioral-based interview question. Tell me a time when you took a leadership role. Tell me a time when you experienced conflict. So when you're answering questions like these, you really want to lean into the STAR method to help you respond in an appropriate way hitting all the important things that the recruiter and or the hiring manager wants to hear. What was the situation at hand? What was the task you needed to achieve? What was the action step that you took? And oftentimes, this is response, I would say result, meaning oftentimes, tell me a time when you took a leadership role. Students will go through their experience in a group project with their students, and the students were either not pulling their weight or they were pulling their weight, and it was hard to delegate. So this is just an example I'm pulling out of my head, but oftentimes students forget the response or the result, right? So I had this group project. We had a lot of amazing um, group people. We all decided what best suited our skill set. Um, I developed a plan to come up with the deliverables for our end PowerPoint presentation, and then a student typically would end it there. What's the result? What grade did you get? What feedback did you get from the professor, the teacher, things like that. So something to think about moving forward. Or you could also just Google the Carl method. It's similar, but those are how you should respond to behavioral-based interview questions. And it's a formula so that you hit all points when you're responding. The other thing I just want to touch on briefly is to maximize your LinkedIn. LinkedIn now is probably one of the number one ways to get leads for jobs and internships, as a matter of fact. So making sure that you have a professional profile picture on LinkedIn. It's the first impression that some interviewers, recruiters will see of you. Complete and optimize your profile as much as possible, because those recruiters are out there on LinkedIn seeking people who meet the skill sets that they need to fill open positions. So the more complete your LinkedIn profile is, the better off your chances are of getting recruited without even applying to a position. But if you apply to a position, especially if your LinkedIn profile is on your resume, best believe that they're going to look at that profile and see, does it match up with your resume? Is everything on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile, et cetera, et cetera. Include the relevant keywords on your headline and your bio. Start building and engaging with your network and connect with fellow interns, employees. So employees within your organization, employees within the industry you want to work in. Those are all networking opportunities for you to reach out and do informational interviewing or connect to say, hey, I'm Nikki and I'm looking for my next full-time gig. I just wanted to see what your experience was like, what your career trajectory was like. How did you get in the role that you're working in? And oftentimes, if somebody's willing to connect with you on that level, they're going to be like, hey, I remember Nikki was looking for XYZ position. So I'm going to pass that along to her, or I'm going to say, hey, let me help you tailor your resume for my company because I know what my company's looking for. Job postings, especially for larger organizations, typically have recruiters. So connect with those recruiters and reach out. That's the way they start engaging with students, especially. There's only been about 15% of you that have activated your LinkedIn Learning account. So I am encouraging you, if you have not already, activate your LinkedIn Learning account and connect it with your profile, because you can get badges or certificates, I should say, that you could highlight on your LinkedIn profile that speak to your skill building and what you've been learning using the platform. Be active on LinkedIn and start writing and sharing content as well as interacting. The more you interact or comment on people's posts, the more the algorithm gets to know you, but it also helps you become more visible to others, especially if you're commenting on industry specific posts. So something to think about. I'm over time. So I had hoped to get you all in breakout rooms to try and meet one another, at least a small group of you, but it doesn't look like we'll have that time. I just want you to start thinking about, do you think that your internship has prepared you for a full-time job? I actually created a poll for that as well. So if you just want to take a few minutes to answer that for me? That would be super helpful for me to record data. And thankfully, everyone who's responding is saying either yes, somewhat, or prepared me for work, maybe not my industry. So that's helpful to know that these internship experiences are helping you grow as professionals and will help you for your next opportunity. I'm just going to share that real quick so you could see. With that, I'm going to stop the recording and open it up for questions. So give me 1 second.